Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. What are we down to about 15, 18 days till football season? I think we're going to be.
Yeah, we mark things sometimes by sports, right? We talk about P's and C's reporting in the spring.
Yep.
Football
Big
is
day.
football is we're getting there. I mean, and it depends upon. When your son was in high school, didn't they start practice by this time? I mean, they have to.
Oh yeah, they've been practicing most of this month. I still get their team snap stuff. I know exactly what's going on over there. And he had to be he's playing in college now. He had to be there August 10th. So he's been back for more than a week now.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's when you play at those levels, they start earlier than the classes, but you got to get in shape, and the coaches have got to see what they've got so they can prepare for the season.
That's right.
And
in public schools, you get a little bit extra money in your coach stipend for coaching those days before school starts, which I didn't know until I coached a fall sport. Got a little extra in my paycheck.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are they paying now? Do you have an idea?
For coaches?
Yeah.
Would they girls basketball? I think they give them $5,100 to divide among the staff. Okay. So you have, a varsity coach, usually an assistant or two, a JV coach, a freshman coach. One or both of them may have assistants. So, it's not my assistant coach when I was at TJ, he said it doesn't even cover the tolls.
Yeah, no,
it's not a get rich quick scheme at all.
No. I seem to recall it was the stipends Montgomery County was giving or whatever were based on if you're the head coach, you got X amount. If you're the assistant coaches, you got X amount. And we're talking just hundreds of dollars,
Yeah. Far below minimum wage. Not even close to minimum wage.
Nothing life-changing, but they don't coach for the money. They coach for the love of the game, the love of the kid.
That's right.
That's the way it should be, and everything. So, well, that's great. That's interesting. That's yeah. It's been so long since I've been out of high school and all that kind of stuff. I hadn't really paid attention to it, but you think about it. Think about the coaches that stick around and coach for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, the girls coach at West Springfield is starting his 44th season.
Yeah. So. And Harwood at Magruder coached it seemed like he coached forever.
You know what? He may be of all the coaches. I was a sports writer. I'm still doing a little bit of it. More than 30 years. And I think he's the best coach I ever covered. I think Terry Shanguris at Seneca Valley was the best football coach, but I think Harwood was the best coach regardless of sports. He was really brilliant. He won with terrible teams. He had, he got the players to buy in like no coach I'd ever seen. He did media training. When you'd interview their players, you could tell they've been taught to look you in the eye and give you a straight answer and, understand what needed to be in that answer and what wouldn't, And I've actually heard him critique him. I talked to him you should have told him this. You shouldn't have said that. So, he was full spectrum educator. I'm a big, huge Dan Harwood fan.
Yeah. Except for the football coach at Northwood for the longest period of time before they shut down that time. I mean, I don't even know if I can remember the coaches, the head coaches of the sports teams at, my alma mater. But for some reason, Harwood and Bob Malloy.
Yeah. Bob.
Yeah, they stand out as, they were there. They were, they've coached in the area for a long time. But Harwood, because he stayed at one school, versus Malloy, who coached at several schools. But I think Dan Shingers. I mean, these are people that are institutions in Montgomery County. So
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, more power to them for doing that. That's great. All right, today is this is a good one. National Bacon Lovers Day.
Yeah, I saw that.
So How do you
Guilty.
feel about bacon?
Guilty. That's me, man. I love that bacon.
Yeah, I mean,
It's good. It goes with anything. It's great for breakfast. I'm not a like if people put it on the burgers. Like my son likes bacon cheeseburgers. That's not really to me. That's kind of a waste of good bacon. But I love bacon. I had some already this morning.
yeah, I say, I mean, I think I probably had a fair amount of bacon when I was growing up. Haven't eaten a whole heck of a lot as an adult. My wife will sometimes buy the turkey bacon and stuff like that. Um, I think part of it is that it's just that the smell permeates the house, so much and everything like this, which is kind of interesting because
You might
uh,
see that as a bug, but I see that as a feature.
people love the smell of it. Yeah. Well, look, she's Korean. The
Yeah,
other thing that can permeate the smell of the house is kimchi. If you've ever
kimchi. Yeah,
smelled kimchi, and you
that's why
take
they
that thing,
bury it, right, and keep it in the ground.
yeah, sometimes they do, but she just has it in the refrigerator when she makes it. So, yeah, the old style way is that Koreans would bury it and things like that, but uh, refrigeration, I think now is it's at a point where you don't need to do that. And I'll have to ask. I can't remember. I don't know if actually burying it helps with anything in particular. Maybe it does. Maybe the
Probably just
fermenting.
keeping it cool, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it helps with the fermenting process or whatever. Anyway, yeah. So bacon, yeah. I've done I've done enough pancake breakfast at church. Is like when we pull out the bacon, we have when we have the kids around, we have to limit the bacon just so they don't eat it all before the adults get there. you know.
My niece is she's a bacon thief, and you always have to have about 5 times as much as you normally need when she's around.
So yeah, so it's yeah, if you want to have a good hit onto your cardiovascular system, eat lots of bacon, I guess. But
Yeah,
I,
probably
I
some
say
food.
I say, look, life is short. Whatever, enjoy it. If there's
Yeah,
food that you love, go eat it.
yeah. I remember Richard Pryor. I don't want to be 90 years old, laying up in a hospital bed, dying of nothing. Want to have done something.
Yeah, man. So chances are nowadays you will die of there. There will be something.
Yeah, it will be something.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So on from bacon. So there was a now story came out here about the government has now said that we've officially hit the $40 trillion in debt mark. Um, Not really unsurprising. I did see this story on Fox News, which I don't know. I was a little curious about only because, it was couched in the whole thing. I was like, during Trump's 2 terms so far, he's been responsible for 10 trillion of that debt. And I thought, that's really not a fair story in my opinion. I mean,
No, it's a
well,
completely nonsense story.
well, I mean, the thing, I mean, they did kind of throw out some of the conditions, in terms of how much debt, increased under Trump, when we had COVID and then Biden had his, and he was still dealing with some of the aftermath of that, but he also added more unnecessary spending to that. Um, it's possible that by the time Trump gets done, that he will have be somewhere around Biden or maybe a little bit above. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, it depends upon how much more money they decide to spend. So, when
Wait a
I think
minute now.
about
But Biden had three $1 trillion plus bills, right? How does that not adding 3 trillion to the deficit?
yeah, well, I mean, look, so under Biden, we added about 8.3, 8.4 trillion. So,
Yeah, but we're now paying for those, the
oh
Inflation
yeah, well,
Reduction Act and all that nonsense.
yeah, sure. No, I mean, look, we're paying for all of this. And the bigger problem with all this is just that with interest rates, staying stubbornly high, it's worse because
Yeah,
this debt increases at an even more rapid rate because it's one thing when we had the low interest era, the decades of that. So Yes. Was there prolific spending on the part of Congress and Republican and Democrat presidents? Yes. Did the debt grow? Yes, but it could grow slower if your interest rates are 2%.
Right.
When your
You can't
interest
have a
rates are
Fed chairman whose guiding principle is that he hates Trump, which
yeah,
we don't anymore, but we did.
well, we know. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, well, Trump and Trump and Powell definitely,
It was a
they
bad
had
mix,
some
and
good.
that's why
I mean,
it's another
But Powell
reason.
was appointed by Trump. Okay, so it's like
Right, but
hello.
that's another reason that you should be able to fire these guys, right? What the Federal Reserve does should reflect the policies of the person we elected, right? I didn't elect those people.
Yeah, I don't.
When you get these agencies that have this quote independence, no, you don't. I didn't vote for you. The only people who have independence are the people I voted for.
I understand that, though. I also understand the idea of having a central bank, which I'm not really. I wasn't. That is independent of politics in general, so that they don't. The appointments of that should not reflect a political. They should be looking at monetary policy, looking at the economy, looking at what's going on here and what the predictions are, and put that down, and then and just kind of shut out the other stuff so that they can try to direct it. And by
And
and large,
that's not what Powell did, though, right? He did politicize it. He did keep the
well,
rates
I think Trump
artificially high to hurt
I
Trump.
think Trump contributed to that, though. Trump pounded on those guys so much that it became more of a political football. I mean, that's the thing. It was Powell the best Fed chair, even if you took that out of the equation? No,
No,
but
he was not good at
not
all.
by any stretch of imagination. That is a tough job. I mean, it's like and I'm speaking with a biased point of view because my father worked for the Fed. He spent 25 years there. He worked with various Fed chairmen from William McChesney Martin through Arthur Burns, and a lot. They had their winning days, their good days, their good years, and then they had some bad years. They did some bad things. So I mean, I think when we got Volcker and Greenspan and these guys, even though you could find fault with things that they did and some policies, things seem to get under control, and they've stayed largely under control. There's the X factor of COVID and trying to push this thing back, put the genie back in the bottle and try to get those interest rates back down and everything back down to the way it was, has proved to be very tough. And Morse has found himself, it's kind of been a tough call. He said, looking around, he is, there's no doubt, he's been given kind of the marching orders from Trump to get those interest rates down, but it's not like you can just go ahead and browbeat all the Fed governors, all the people who are voting, and say we're going to do this without looking at the economic numbers. And the economy's even with
he's
the
moving at
interest
the
rates up.
appropriate speed. He's like, yeah, we need to move in this direction the minute it's appropriate to do so. So
Yeah, I mean, I think they're watching, and by the very fact that not everybody on the board, that on the voting members have been in favor of the current interest rate policy, already shows that we're moving in a different direction. It's historic in that nature, instead of having a virtually unanimous vote in terms of direction of things. And then he's gotten rid of this dot plot thing and stuff like that. So they're not going to telegraph. They're not going to try to let people overanalyze the Fed and try to tell the Fed what they should do. The Fed is going to try to figure this out based on more information without getting the media involved in it too, because I think that's another thing, is that the media gets involved in that, and it's just kind of it only adds to the mess of the whole thing. And yet, so despite the fact that we've had lots of other things going on in the world, which would have, on normal circumstances, would have said interest rates and other things would have shot up, the economy would be in bad shape. We're hanging in there. We still may not have avoided everything yet, but here we are, getting moving closer to the halfway point of Trump's term, and by and large, the economy has been pretty resilient. There are cracks, as there are always going to be, but by and large, people are still more or less spending out there, and they're complaining about some things, but there's some things I mean, I don't know what, the high beef prices. Is the government supposed to somehow raise more know or
Right.
something? And
Right. Yeah. And another thing is like, uh, so the time it took to get to 40 trillion, right? When Trump was elected, it was like, it'll be a few weeks, maybe a few months. And it's been more than 2 years because, we've run some plus quarters since Trump has returned, right? There's some quarters where we took in more than we spent, which is, is probably around, April, right? But I mean, if the deficit, the debt in theory had the opportunity to go down. I don't know if they did that, right? They may have done other things with their newfound gain, but it got to 40 a lot slower than it was predicted to get to 40
yeah, I
because
mean,
of
so I hate all the. I mean, in general, I don't. I just don't like the way that either party has handled spending overall. I mean, we're closing in at the end of the fiscal year, and we'll probably we're at like $1.8 trillion deficit for the fiscal year. Uh, this is mind-boggling to me, to where my small brain remembers years of when we talked about 500 million and people were getting upset. And it's like we're basically quadrupling our deficit on an annual basis. You're not going to catch up,
yeah,
doing this, and no one is standing in there. Republicans have been a little bit better lately, but they were terrible under Trump one, in terms of they just let it go, and they've been better under Trump two. I'm trying to hold the line on it, but you know there this would require some massive cuts to get back in there without raising taxes.
well, okay, I'm glad that's the thing. Okay, so it's Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and you can gripe about it, and people say, "Oh, Social Security is our money." No, it's not. It's not. If it's my money, I'll take it all out and put it in a private account and get a much better return. But I'm not allowed to do that, right? I'm waiting on 65 or 67 or whatever it is now, and I'm going to file and get whatever they determine that I am worth, right? So the whole notion is nonsense, right? It ain't your money. It's their money now, right? You shouldn't have given it to them if you wanted it under those circumstances. But they've got the money and they're making it. And the day that Obamacare became law, New York State alone added 525,000 people to Medicare. Okay, just took all these people and put them on the Medicare gravy train, right?
Well, I think that's Medicaid.
Medicaid, that's right, Medicaid. So, what they did is they grew Medicaid to an unsustainable level, right? So, we don't have uninsured. It's like, yeah, but we're broke forever, right? Because we put all these people on the health plan who were surviving just fine without being on the health plan. So now they're all on the health plan, and the legislative momentum to do what actually needs to be done, which is to go back to the pre-Obamacare, wage requirements or whatever on that, wage limits on that, and really provide health care to the genuinely poor who can't do anything about it, and everybody else, get your own health insurance, right? And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not serious about solving this problem.
Well, that's the one thing I will say, that's where the Trump administration is trying to, kind of stanch the red ink, is that they've been trying to adjust the payments. They've really tightened up on payments for both Medicare and Medicaid, but Medicaid is for the poor, and that's where they focused a lot of time on in Obamacare, is expanding those Medicaid rolls by basically giving them the money to pay for the expansion of the Medicaid rolls, right? For I think they were going to cover it for 3 or 4 years or whatever it was, and then they were going to ratchet it back a little bit, but not even by that much. And now I think the Trump administration is saying, well, we want to do this differently, and and Medicaid is a state-run program, and so states, they jumped at the chance to get federal money, but they didn't realize the Democrat, especially in the blue states, they jumped at that money without really thinking. Well, maybe they did think, but they
They
didn't care
totally
because they were going
thought
to kick the
they
can.
didn't care.
Yeah, it was going to be somebody else's problem, but by the time the bill really came due, and that's what's happening now is that costs of Medicaid have spiraled out of control, and these states are left holding the bag, in terms of that. Uh, the government, I think the administration is trying to do what it can to rein in healthcare costs. Social Security, yeah, it's not really our money. It's in quote a lockbox. It's kind of a separate item. And they say they're going to, if the money in that runs out, that benefits will be cut back about 25%. A few years down the road. I got my first Social Security payment this week, and I'm like, step one.
Oh wow.
I was like, okay, it's going to take a whole lot more of these to get just to get the principal back of the money I paid. My payment, not even talking about my employer's payment,
Right.
and everything like this. But this is the Ponzi scheme that is now starting to fall apart because what's happened to our birth rate, right? Our
Yeah.
birth rate has shrunk. So now all those workers that used to funnel in and pay for all those retirees and all those benefits, they're diminishing. And as
Yeah. When
we
it
had,
started, it was 27 to 1, 27 workers supporting each retiree. Now it is about 1.8 to 1.
yeah, it's very
That's a
low.
big math problem.
Yeah, so this is a huge problem that this is why we're going to see this, funding issue. Now, Social Security is like there is no way politically you can say I'm going to cut your benefits 25%. You will not survive politically.
Right. See, that's the thing is like all the things are locked into these things that where there's no political impetus or momentum to solve it. So you say, why don't Trump just solve this? Well, the big three are immovable. So what do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So yeah, having been on Medicare for 2 years, having now just collected my first Social Security check, also doing so gave my wife a bump in hers because she's been collecting a little longer because she gets the spousal benefit. So I was like, okay, good. This is ratcheting this up a little bit, uh, and so it would never, it would, we've lived without it and it wouldn't kill me if I didn't have it. But I want the money. I want the money I put into the system at the very minimum. I want that back.
Yeah.
And
Good luck.
thank you, federal government, for finally starting to dole that back out to me based on a formula that probably no one except people who do work on actuarial tables or something like that even understand how they calculate that amount
Right.
to begin with. Plus they dangle this thing and say, if you every year you wait past your full retirement age, we'll give you 8% more. So so that you can get 32% more if you wait till the maximum of 70. Okay, so now then you're playing a calculus is like, am I going to live to 70, and what is it worth actually that 8%, based on the size of my check to wait, or should I just collect the money now? And I think the momentum has shifted to, oh yeah, that 8% is a great return to take it now.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really know what the government's going to do. Get your money now,
Yeah.
and you'll probably be better off. So
I
yeah, I
wonder
mean,
now if if you could try again on privatizing it. You can't do any worse than they did before.
yeah,
Chile did this, right? And they said if we ever get to the point where you're making less on this plan than you would have been making with the just government payouts like we have now, we'll write you a check to make up the difference. They've never written a check for that purpose because it's always been ahead. And if you look at it in the U.S., if you start a 10-year period of investing every single year since 1900, right? There's only 1 year where 10 years later you wouldn't be ahead of the game. And that year was 1931. So all the way through the Depression and into the start of World War II. That's the only 10 years the American stock market has lost value. Right? Every other year, if you started, you finished ahead of the game. So,
Well,
they
yeah, I
will
mean,
finish
yeah, I
ahead of
mean,
the game.
right. When you look at the long term, the thing is that the return that the government is going to giving you on the money you paid into Social Security is minuscule compared to if you had that money and invested it over
Right.
that time period, you would have a lot more money. Now,
Even if they made you do it in like low yield, safe stuff, right?
right. Even if, yeah, I mean, you would still be doing fairly well, even if they said you can only put that money into bonds. Okay,
Yeah.
bonds get a much lower return, but they usually over time still have a positive return, but they trail stocks by a pretty wide margin. But if you could do that, if there were if there were index funds around for when they started the whole process, it would have
Right.
been amazing. It would have probably been amazing overall because in the long run, you would have been fine. It's like, they would just invested money. There would have been so many positive ramifications of doing so. But, no, that's not the way they set it up. Yeah, privatization. There are things that we should have privatized in that regard, and this is definitely at the top of the list.
And now you're also kind of walled in by the transition costs are pretty daunting, probably
yeah.
10, 12, 15 trillion dollars. So it ain't cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the state of Maryland, I mean, I think they finally gave in and have opted into the system, and they had opted out. The states could opt out, and some did, but I think the government puts a lot of screws to you to say we need your people in, your state employees in to the
Yeah.
system. So, yeah, it's one of those things that's like, yeah, I still pay a little bit into the system, but I'm glad I'm getting more out of it now, finally. So
Yeah.
I can travel the world, right? Haha.
There you go. Find them
All
7
right.
Elevens
Anyway,
in Japan.
yeah. Well, my wife's going back to Korea in October, and I think we're gonna try another Korea trip next year because my wife's going like, life is short, and
Yeah.
while you're still healthy, let's keep moving. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're a road trip guy. I'm
Yeah.
not as big on road trips because I don't like being in the car for very long. So, it's like you put me on a plane and get me to the other point as fast as you can, and then I can do things at the other end. I'm much better than spending a lot of time on the road. But I know you get the enjoyment of ballpark, ballpark, ballpark,
Golf
which I
course,
think is,
golf course, golf course.
yeah, which I think is a great thing. Yeah, I mean that's something I definitely miss out on. Of course, if my wife was into ballparks, I'd be a lot more, interested in doing that. But
That changed the shape of things.
yeah, she
That's really like one of the greatest gifts God's ever given me is my wife is a sports fan. I don't have to force her to watch.
yeah. My wife, she likes some sports, but there's no way I'm getting her to a baseball game. She's kind of made that clear, which is sad.
Yeah, that is sad.
And if she winds up watching the show, she might even get mad.
That's right.
A little bit. All right, so we've got 76 days till election day. Um, things are going. I mean, oil prices bumped up a little bit since we last spoke. Gas prices are up about 7 cents according to AAA. I've seen some spiking here in the area where I live. So
Mine has stayed. It stayed relatively decent around here the last few days.
It just shows you. I mean, it's station to station, though, right? Some stations move. They're like, okay, any little movement there, and next thing you know, it's up. Others, they stay steady for a while, and then if the movement, if oil prices remain up for a longer period of time, where they go for, then you will start seeing that. So it's a little bit of a psychological game with some of these stations. Like, do I get the gas now or do I wait when it's empty? I don't like playing that game necessarily, but it's just gas prices, oil prices have just become extremely volatile in the last really almost 6 months now that we've been in the Iran war. So we've got that. The memorandum of understanding with Iran has expired. Trump is vowing to ramp up economic pressure again. Uh, Once again, it was with just 2.5 months or whatever to election day. He's got to do. He really needs to do something. Uh, for Republicans to make sure that they stand they stand a better chance of winning the election here in the fall.
On Iran, yeah, there needs to be some kind of breakthrough. I think that the idea of starving them to death is, I mean, the government, hopefully not the people, but is starting to take effect. Like, they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars every day. Ships are getting through the strait again. He has it. I guess he has wiped out the people who were trying to, they can sort of gather intelligence and make minor trouble, but that's about all that the Iranians can do now. So they're getting their 20 million gallons or barrels per day through there, but it takes some time to straighten out the supply lines and address everything and move forward. And that's a big thing, is when you see gas get down to 350, 340, signs that it's like way off the top level and it's not going back to the top level. That'll be a big boost for Democrats. For Republicans, can that happen before the election? Yeah, sure. It could happen, within 2 weeks if you get some resolution there. And I think, he's there. We're obviously rearming, he has all these weapons companies working overtime. And so, we'll be ready to go back to shooting again if we need to. But I think the plan now is to see if we can put enough, because obviously, they're not paying anybody, right? They can't pay their soldiers. They can't keep the lights on. They've lost a lot of power infrastructure and so forth. And so it's getting to the point where the people of Iran are like, you're failing us, leaders. You're not providing for the general welfare. And I think at that point, that may be the way to get, to unearth displace, I guess you'd say, the mullahs. And I don't think we should quit. Even, whatever happens in the midterms happens in the midterms. But I don't think we should quit this until we have ridded the world of the mullahs. We should not stop short of that goal.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going on around the world. I mean, we're embroiled in this conflict, and we've got, I think we've done some good there, but we really need an end to this conflict. And the few weeks has turned into what is it now, 174 days? Like I said, it's almost 6 months, and I'm sure you're seeing it just as I'm seeing it, is that the Q word, the quagmire, is starting to pop up in the media about this. And as much as I hate the media, at some point in time, that word will be much more appropriate than it is right now.
Because we're not to a quagmire. We're still making progress, but you're open to them making that accusation.
Yeah. I mean, it's not wholly unreasonable, but we're not really there yet. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this story. I mean, I just heard about it today. So the ousted defense minister in Ukraine is challenging Zelensky and wants an election, right? And I thought, it's like, you want to try to have an election during a war?
Yeah, because we were hitting on him.
This is not going to fly, is it?
Right. At one time, the Republicans were saying he won't even stand for election, and then that kind of talking point kind of fell off the table because it was like, well, that'd be a little impractical. So
yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting ploy. I mean, I don't know how far this guy think he can get. What's his name, Mikhailo Fedorov? But I just find that to be kind of ridiculous. I mean, your country is embroiled here, in this whole conflict with Russia, and you're making some pretty good progress lately. Yeah, I mean, you've really used drones very effectively. You've been able to actually to get further into Russia than anybody ever thought possible. So this thing isn't going to end anytime soon. But the thing you need to do is try to hold an election. And how do you hold an election when people are fighting? It's like
you're not even clear what's in your jurisdiction really at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't seem even remotely plausible to me at this point. So as I was saying, well, I guess one more thing too, quickly. So Trump he kind of was decided to ratchet up the trade war with Canada again, but looks like he got him to agree to some things, uh, and I had kind of forgotten all this. So the our USMCA, our Trade Act. So if Trump doesn't agree, what is it? If Trump doesn't agree really to renew it for another 16-year period, it just gets reviewed annually, right? I mean, it doesn't just terminate.
Yeah. Doesn't make it go away, right?
It doesn't make it go away. It just gets subject to annual reviews, otherwise. But Trump seems to have leaned on them, and it seems, at least on the surface, they were Canada decided that they would give in to a few things for Trump. Uh, but it had been to me relatively silent on that front until recently.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think
And
you're in a position to starve them out. They're preloaded for this, right? They're already in a lot of trouble. They already have, what did Trump say the other day? 700% inflation, and cops in the military aren't getting paid. It doesn't usually last long after that.
yeah, and we welcome Bob back to the show. We've missed your insight along the way. So so it's kind of been interesting on the international front there. Then we come back here, and we're still going through primaries, and so we had Florida, Alaska, Wyoming. Florida and Alaska may be the more interesting of the three. Byron Donalds, current representative, coasted in his race to replace Ron DeSantis. He's going to face David Jolly, a former Republican representative turned Democrat. And it's like, does this sound like Charlie Crist, era?
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah, it does. And then like the people who hate Trump, all of a sudden there was instantly a poll that Jolly was 1 point ahead. Florida might be the most Republican state, conservative Republican state in the country right now. He is not going to win. Donalds is going to win.
Florida has changed massively in the last 25 years.
Yeah,
it has changed massively, and
a lot of the credit got to go to DeSantis on that. He really has nailed that down as a Republican state. It's probably almost 70% Republican now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the turnaround in that state where you'd wait on that state as a swing state and everything is going to the whole thing of Bush v. Gore and all these things and the hanging chat, that's not happening. I mean,
the other thing about that, speaking of the hanging chads, right? All those votes were counted in about 3 hours. The whole state, 40 million people, done in 3 hours, or 25 million people, I'm sorry, done in 3 hours, 4 hours. It all announced. Everybody knew who won and lost. Got some of them, you didn't really have a lot of nail biters in there, but it was accounted, right? And if there would have been nail biters, then we could say, oh, okay, we can have a recount. But we knew that night what they were, right? Which just shows you California that it can be done. The other election was really interesting. It was an upset. The Democrat establishment put all their eggs in the basket of Alexei Vindman, the Ukrainian guy whose lies about Trump led to the first Trump impeachment. They all thought he was going to win. They gave him $16 million, all this and that and the other. Schumer down there stumping for him. And this lunatic woman who's, took a bullhorn to the legislature and started, I'm out of order.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you haven't seen that video, you gotta look for that video. That is crazy. It's crazy.
The best thing is like the bullhorn and her dress match, right?
True,
she got a pink bullhorn and a pink dress.
Yeah, that's right. It was pretty funny.
And she's a full-on lunatic who has no chance to win. And Vindman is out now. There's his brother is like Virginia 7. And so we need to get him out now. He's in a pretty tight race too. That's one of the few flippable seats. Part of the reason they wanted to redistrict in Virginia was to shore him up because he's not in great shape.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting race. So now it's what is it? Ashley Moody Rubio's
Yeah,
replacement. So I think I can't see that she would lose to this lunatic.
right.
Um, and it's interesting to note here. So you've got on the same ticket, right? You've got David Jolly running for governor, and who's come out and made sure he's like, I am for capitalism, right?
Right.
And then you've got her, and she's not for
Not
capitalism.
for capitalism at all. Yeah, it's
So
interesting how they're having to choose whether to run with or against, and it's pretty stark choice. I mean, you're either with them or you're either that or you're not. So there's
yeah,
two Democrat parties. Now, I guess they hate Trump so bad, most of them, that they will cross over, but you're not going to get the enthusiasm, which adds up to a lot of votes. For El Sayed and Nixon and all these other lunatics.
yeah. Now Corey Mills lost his primary, so another incumbent down the drain. Another troubled incumbent, just lots of controversy swirling around him, and couldn't make his way through this. See now, if he was a Democrat, he probably would have been fine.
So, but I will say this about that, and I got some flack for saying this in some other formats, but so the Democrats, when they decided Biden couldn't give a straight answer, they got rid of him. They decided that Bernie couldn't win the election, they got rid of him. When they decided that Hillary couldn't win, but Barack could, they got rid of her. Right? They have no compunction about throwing people. The guy in Maine throwing people off the ballot just because they don't think they can win. Right? They look at the polls and it doesn't look good. So now all the other things people complain about you, we now acknowledge their complaints and admit they're right, and you're off. Right? You're gone. Okay. The Republicans said, Corey Mills is the office holder, and we're going to have an election, which we just did. And if he loses, then he'll be out. But if he doesn't lose, he's the one. That's between him and his district, whether he resigns or stays in or whatever he does, right? So I think the right thing happened there. They had the election. The voters said, no more of you, and he's out, right? He'll be out in January or whatever. But I think that's I like our approach over theirs. I don't want the poobahs picking the winners, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, the thing is like the voters should decide. Now, Democrat voters have a long history of just continuing to vote some pretty cruddy people into office. You can get charged with a whole lot of crimes, and you still, and because as long as you don't get thrown in prison, basically, as long you're able to run for office and stay on the ballot, those people will elect you.
Yeah, that's right.
And they have, and it's like this is how bad politics. I mean, that was and this stuff goes back during the early part of my lifetime, and nowadays it's like we've got plenty of corrupt politicians and corrupt guys, but the Republican voters at least seem to say no. For the most part, they're like, no, we're not going to, we don't want you to be
we don't
the
support wife
officer.
beaters,
Yeah, we don't support that.
But we decided that, like the
Yeah,
Republicans went to the polls and said, no, wife beater, you're out.
right. So, also on the poo boss picking, obviously Kamala Harris goes into that thing. It's like, no voters picked Kamala Harris. It was all the poo boss.
Right.
So
that's right.
And they got what they
see what you get.
That's exactly right. They just took the words right out of my mouth. Well, the other thing that was interesting about Florida was that I didn't realize, out of they had all these candidates, and I didn't bother looking at how many candidates were running, against Donald's, but and throughout Florida and whatever. But apparently, I guess Madison Cawthorn and Chris Collins were trying to make a political comeback in Florida after getting booted out of their states.
Okay.
Now, this is also a case, too, I think, of our voters, Republican voters, decided. Cawthorn was from North Carolina. Wasn't Collins from New Jersey? Yeah. And so now they're in Florida and they're trying to run for office. And, Republicans said, no dice. Okay. We like the other guy. We like the other person better. Right. So, and so the Republican Party, somebody could have easily said, no, we're going to make that path easier for the former reps, but they didn't do that. And all that stuff. So maybe this puts a nail in the coffin of the political career for those guys too as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think
anyway.
Cawthorn should be doing commentary, right? Because I mean, there's an audience for it, right?
Yeah.
It's not me and you, but there's people out there who definitely would tune in every day. And he's pretty entertaining. He's got some stuff to say.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, in this world of YouTube, TikTok, everything like this,
Absolutely.
You can do this podcast. You can set this thing up, and you can actually, especially when you're entertaining and also controversial, you can draw a large audience. I mean,
oh yeah,
I mean, look at Benny Johnson. I mean, that's what Benny thrives on. That he can be terribly inaccurate, but it doesn't really matter because people eat him up.
That's right.
So, and no one seems to care.
That's right. That's another thing. Is like, and it's like one of the things with all this stuff about Fauci, right? The national media completely embarrassed itself over Fauci, right? They declared him right about everything, and anybody argue with him wrong, right? Without any knowledge of the science involved or anything like that. And now, they're all like, oh, well, because they were totally wrong, and you can't trust them, right? They'll lie to you about that. They'll lie to you about literally anything.
Yeah, I mean, after Fauci appeared on the Hill and everything, there's all the other things that we're learning through his diaries and stuff like that. Thank you, Rand Paul. It's just that, yeah, so how do you defend this guy, at all?
Right, and they had a guy, one of his henchmen, pleaded this week,
right,
and pleaded to reduce charges. And there's a sentencing report, and they sealed some of the sentencing report, which usually means that says that he cooperated. So, someone who guy who's directly under Fauci is pleaded guilty and is to reduce charges and appears to be turning state's evidence. So we'll see, what is covered by that pardon and so forth. But that man's in a lot of trouble, and I would not have gone on Capitol Hill and gotten all belligerent, because now you got people mad at you, and you got a whole country saying, okay, what are the criminal things that he can't admit to, that aren't covered by a pardon, right? Because if it was covered by a pardon, he could just say it. So there are crimes in there that he's trying to get away with that aren't covered by the pardon.
All right. So just quickly on Alaska, I mean, I should have done this and I didn't look to see for a poll on Sullivan versus Peltola. Have you seen anything as terms of initial polling in terms of which way that race is likely to go at this point?
It's going to be pretty close from what I've seen, what I've read about it. And they ran another candidate named Dan Sullivan.
Right.
The Democrats did, to try to fool people or whatnot. Right. It's available. You can tell that they're desperate. But also, I read that if Peltola wins, Murkowski's going to switch parties. Which, how will we tell? Right. That's right. That's exactly right. People making a lot of money, not worrying about accuracy. The whole principle of how media works. Like, you fact check the heck out of anything you put out. Your mother tells you she loves you, you got to get it confirmed by someone else, right?
Yeah.
It's not true just because your mother told you.
That's right. You're the handsomest person in the world. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I need another source. I really do. Would anyone else like to tell me I'm the most handsome person on earth?
Yeah, I'll take those compliments.
Yeah.
Thank you. I won't ask for verification from anyone else.
But then when you can't find a corroborating witness.
Do you think I'm? Anyway, all right. So, and just one last thing about Nixon. So she is now the eighth DSA candidate to win a primary. Okay, yeah. So with all the people that are up for re-election, so you get the entire Congress and you got a third of the Senate. That is not like a huge number percentage wise, but it's one that's got to make the Democratic Party worry a lot, because that's not that's not the agenda they want to go down with, and they're being dragged in that direction by these and loud voices. I mean, you talked
Yeah.
about Nixon on that on the floor, and how she shouted with the pink dress and the whole 9 yards, just being an absolute crazy person, out of order and all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not what you want, and you don't want people running around and basically talking about abolishing everything that we hold near and dear. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
You're talking about, I mean, these guys, here's what they want to do. They want to abolish the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court, and expand the House of Representatives to 630 seats or something, and just run the whole country out of the House of Representatives, out of 630 House Representatives.
yeah, they want to
So,
make it look more like a parliament, right?
yeah, and nothing but no court, no judicial review of anything. They handle all justice, right? Because they want to defund ICE and the cops and prisons and all that, right? So it's not going to really do anything about criminals, right? We're just going to let you, they steal, you lose, right? So I don't know the country's going to go for that very long. And I think, you have, Carville saying, I'm not in that party, right? That ain't me. And, a lot of other their mainline guys saying, Jolly, like you said, saying, hey, wait, I am all for capitalism. You can't win like that. There's internal wars like that. And it's like, I know they're riding high now and they all think they're going to just romp to victory here in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months. But, it doesn't work that way. You got to have everybody on the same team.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're loud, and they give you a lot of sound bites and stuff like that, but the constitutionality of what they want to do, not going to happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is like this X this morning, some guy says 70% of the country wants Trump impeached. Well, no, Rasmussen has him at 44% in the polls today. So those 44% you can assume don't want him impeached, right? If they're saying they support him. Okay. Beyond the people who said they support him, there's about 10 or 12% of neutrals. So 55 to 60% right there, not going to be interested in him being impeached. So you have these people talk to each other and no one else. They get their information from each other and no one else. Like the thing like MRC is always working on is these phone apps, right? The MS News and Google News and those guys on your phone, right? Installed on your phone when you get it, right? And people, that's their news. And those guys don't put anything on there but leftist news. So they assume that, the only thing that's going on is what the leftists say is going on. And, they're missing a big part of the story of what's going on in the country right now.
All right. So let's speed this up with some quick comments here. Darline Graham didn't do herself any favors in that debate when asked about China and things like that. I mean, look, you've got to, she's got to do a better job. I mean, she's got the name, but that was not.
Someone should go prepare her, but she's a better choice than the other guy. For one thing, old white guys are going to have a tough cycle. It shouldn't be that way. It should not cost you to be an old white guy, but they are. Ralph Norman is not a good choice for this. He actually could lose it. So school her up on foreign policy. Her brother figured it out. And make her. And what you want now is not another Murkowski Collins. You want a candidate who goes there and votes with Trump, votes with the party, makes things happen instead of obstructing things from happening. And that's more likely to be her than him.
Yeah, I mean, you can get up to speed on this, but I'm just like, her answer is kind of like, she didn't know much about this, but she says, I like the military. It's like, not really the best answer.
Yeah, but it does have the advantage of being honest.
Yeah, no, yeah, look, and it goes back. This will go back to your point too about, look, the voters are going to decide. It's going to, whether or not they want Graham or they want, Norman in there, and then we just go with that. Whatever happens. And I don't know how much this will ding her. I mean, she's carrying the torch for Lindsay, so that probably will have great weight.
At least this election.
Right. right? At least for this one, right? So I want to throw out this question for a quick answer in terms of, because we're seeing this all around the country. Data center outrage is the rage, or at least it seems to be the rage. You know, and politicians are reacting to this, and I think they're overreacting to this, in my opinion, in terms of what's going on here. And so, I mean, what are your quick thoughts about, well, how much will data centers factor into this election, particularly for Republican candidates?
Well, part of it is like Richland Parish, Louisiana, which is in the Delta. It's like between Monroe and Vicksburg along the Mississippi River. They just got a check for the data center that's operating there now for 4 times the county budget, the entire county budget. And that is a quarterly payment that they get 4 times a year. Okay. So like things are about to change in Richland Parish fairly dramatically for the positive because of data centers. Shreveport signed one, agreed to another one last night or yesterday in West Shreveport, another data center. The mayor gave a pretty funny speech about, they're complaining about water. And he said, we can produce 72 million gallons of water a day. The hottest day in Shreveport this summer, which I think it had been the day before, it was like 109 degrees. He said we've produced 45,000. So we're not close to being up against it on water. Louisiana has not only water on the surface. Yeah, that's right.
I love this comment. This is like one of the best comments. I love this comment.
Yeah, that's right. And why Louisiana has water on the surface and underground, these underground rivers and whatnot. It has loads of water. Water's not an issue. Other places it may be, but it's not there. We will have data centers, right? There's we all turn against data centers and they go away. We will have them. So we need to figure out, sourcing and the water use and the energy and all that, and get it figured out, because you're not going to stop this, right? The need for it has already been created and you're already relying on it, and you're not going to go back. So make your peace with it and figure it out.
Yeah. And the thing is that you're not really going to be able to, you're not going to stop this from happening.
Right.
All right. So if you don't, if they've offered you, buku bucks and you turn it down, they will start searching elsewhere to build. So someone wants to take their money. So you lose out on this. I think they have been, people who are against this have been badly misinformed about this and don't understand. Like you're talking about Louisiana, there is transformational money involved here for a lot of these places. So
right, a lot of very poor places too.
Right.
Not people who don't need it, people who very much need it. By the way, did you see that, Musk is trying to build like a rocket launching place down very far South Louisiana. And he went down there to like check out the site, and his truck got stuck in the mud. And one of these Cajun Navy guys came and pulled him out of the mud. This guy thinks they're, the trillionaire, and this dude with
that's great.
Baseball cap on backwards.
What a great
Thanks,
story,
buddy.
All right, really quickly, thoughts, little quick hits here. Lakers have been flipped for $12.5 billion, just about a year after they were sold. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that this guy Mark Walter is going to be out of the whole thing. It seems that his business has got some potential issues. So maybe it's better to have other owners of the team at this point.
It's conservatives too, which is kind of roiled some people out in LA. Jeannie Buss has decided, daughter of Jerry Buss, who was the owner of the Lakers for decades, has decided she's not sure about all this sale, but I'm sure as soon as the checks start arriving, she will begin. That's right. Turned off.
Another good comment.
Bob's rolling today, man.
Oh yeah, he's rolling.
But yeah, I think that's what I think about it.
Yeah. Okay, and then I know you're such a royal watcher. So story is that Harry and Meghan are packing their bags and they're heading back to the UK, which they'll be welcomed with open arms, right?
Yeah, that's what hit me is like, what makes you think that'll be better? Right? I mean, here you're kind of a zero, but zero's
Yeah.
okay, right? We're all kind of zeros, right? But over there, you're going to be hated, right? Because I mean, there's not a lot of sentiment for the Royals right now.
And the thing is that so they came over here thinking like, they're going to make all kinds of money using, kind of using the name and the whole royal thing and all this kind of stuff, trying to take advantage of that aura, and they flopped.
Yeah, no
They
one
really,
cares about that here.
they really flopped. They didn't have quite. I almost decided to contact Megan Lott and say, Megan, we want you to give us a 30-second commentary because you're the biggest royal watcher I
Yep,
know.
Megan or my friend Cindy Gallagher, she's also big into it.
So I threw this one in too because I thought it was interesting. So Costco has announced that they're going to start offering. I didn't see exactly when. I didn't look deeply enough. They're going to start offering Medicare Advantage plans. Now, Costco's got, I don't even know how many members, but they've got a lot across the country. Medicare Advantage, getting into the healthcare business is an interesting choice on their part, in my opinion, because this is not something that you're going to immediately make profits on necessarily, unless. But I guess I'm thinking maybe Costco has got this. Maybe they've tried to figure this out in terms of how they're going to offer these plans to keep them so that they will actually break even or make money rather than what's been happening over the last couple of years, particularly really since a lot of it's ramped up probably since Trump took office, where when requirements and payments got changed through Medicare and everything like this, Medicare Advantage plans where the health insurance companies were making a lot of money started losing money. So
So it's like they think that they've built a better mousetrap, right? So what is the mousetrap? To me, it's probably like how this is processed, the processing costs, right? Because like you're saying, when you change policy, it's a big money loser to them to transform to the new policy, right? The new payouts and all that. So my guess is that the better mousetrap they've come up with is a better way to calculate and adjust all that.
yeah,
So they can
yeah.
make money where others can't.
So I'm biased on Costco, but they're amazingly run business. So I don't they didn't jump in here willy nilly. They obviously
Right.
had to study this market for years and years and years. I didn't touch Medicare Advantage because of my insurance broker said here are the differences, and I'm glad I followed his advice because with my cancer and everything like this, I think my coverage under Advantage would have been far worse.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, because the basically thing is that you get a choice when you go on Medicare, and you can go Advantage, which can be free to very low premium, and they have lots of bells and whistles and some things going on there, or you can opt in for like a Part G plan, I think is what it is, or something like that. And you'll pay a premium, and you'll pay a higher premium. It's the one I pay is almost as high as my Medicare premium, but we're talking about $400 a month combined Medicare and premiums overall between the two plans. But I didn't have to I didn't have to get a physical. They didn't they could not exclude me. If I'd gone with Medicare Advantage and then wanted to get another plan, wanted to go traditional insurance kind of thing like that afterwards, I would have had to have, taken a test, and they could have excluded me if I'd had the cancer at that time, and that would have been bad news. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we made the right choice. It's everybody's physical, fitness, their health is different, so they choose what they think. But I think a lot of Medicare, Advantage people have found that uh, they're losing their plans because the insurers are saying we can't make money off this anymore. So you got to find another plan. Either find another Medicare Advantage plan, or you find this other Part G plan. But guess what? You'll have to pass the test in essence. And if you're not healthy enough, they may not take you. So it's kind of buyer beware. Watch out what you're going on around here. All right. So time for the MRC minute here. What do you got for us this week?
Okay, so one of the things MRC has been working on is they've been giving data to the FCC, which is looking into the broadcast licenses of the 8 ABC owned local television stations, eight local stations that ABC controls, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, not here. Here, ABC is owned by, or was owned by the Albritons, but it's a different, it's not owned by the network. So so they're challenging those licenses on the basis of they're not meeting their equal time requirements under the charter of the FCC, the things they agreed to get the access to those broadcast frequencies. And so this week ABC fired back with a lawsuit against the FCC, charging that this is being picked on for its political views and violation of the First Amendment. But the law says you have to give equal time to all the viewpoints, and obviously ABC is statistically the most biased of the networks, and they're the farthest from giving equal time. So it'll be interesting. They've also done this with The View. The View wants to be considered a legitimate news program so that it doesn't have to give equal time, right? And we're saying there's no way. What are you talking about, guys? So we'll see on that. Could get a ruling on the View within a couple of weeks. Could be a little longer before we hear about whether ABC will get its 8 network-owned local station licenses renewed.
All right, great. All right, and I'm going to close the show briefly here with I realize that this is it's a big anniversary month, wedding anniversary month in the Irvine Tidwell household, I guess. So August 14th, my parents got married, August 14th, 1947. So we just passed that. But it also turns out, it's also the same date that my son, Stephen, married his wife, Bree, in 2021. So we have 2 wedding anniversaries on the same day. Though my parents didn't live to see that wedding take place. And then tomorrow is my daughter's wedding anniversary, and I think it's going to be her 17th, something like that. I have to go back and double check her. Anyway, it's because she's got a kid who's like 14. So it's like, anyway, so it's yeah, and so that's
my parents was the 19th, 1955.
Yeah, so August was August was a good month for our household.
You got to do it before that football season starts. These people that right. Middle of October having a wedding. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, no. And I wasn't doing cold weather.
No. My nephew, they got married in Baton Rouge, right? So they're like, okay, might get a cool day, but they got married in January. They wanted to have an outdoor wedding, outdoor reception. It was 21 degrees. So they had these tents and the heaters go, all that stuff. I don't blame them for trying, but man, they came up.
I remember, I don't remember the exact date, but I remember my sister-in-law, she got married in, Mesa, Arizona in the summer. Okay. And that was my first real exposure to Arizona like that. We were all melting. My poor little children, it was hard. I mean, we were looking for shade where we could. At least the ceremony was indoors, but there was a lot of waiting outdoors, and then you're taking pictures outdoors, and it's like, oh boy, it was brutal. It was lovely but brutal. So, when Spencer got married, his was in, right around Thanksgiving, November. So, in Arizona, it was better. My nephew got married in the following May in Arizona. That was okay, survival, because you do it in the morning before things get really warm. But it was, in the summertime in Mesa, Arizona, people get married. I mean, people get married in, all kinds of weather, but it's like, keep me out of that when I can. Anyway, so I'm a fair weather guy. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Just a programming note too is that because of my travels and whatnot, uh, the show will air on Thursday for the next couple weeks, and then we'll get back to our regular schedule, and it's just going to be whatever it is based on where the heck I'm going to be over the next 2 months. Anyway, so thanks for joining us today. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not want to tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you next Thursday.